We're ready to begin turn number 9. The Soviets will be going first. It is 12 p.m. Line of sight is now 5, and this is a day turn. No reinforcements, ammunition, or replacement points for either side in this turn. The majority of our action is going to happen here at the hotel now that the Soviets have their large pieces of artillery. There's going to be a lot of action here, lots of attacking, and a lot of indirect fire coming in, trying to get as many column shifts as possible. Keep in mind we can't go any further to the right in column shifts than 6 to 1. They do have reduced units that either need to be retreated or attempted to recover, and make some decisions with what we're going to do here. Are we going to try another attack, or are we just going to build our forces up? Well, let's start with the easy stuff first. Let's worry about the units that either need to recover or need to retreat. We have this unit here that needs to recover and is already far enough away we don't need to worry about any movement. These two units here are both reduced and need to be retreated. If they go to this space here, they'll be at least 4 away for a future turn. They both have a movement of 5. That is a forest hex with a road on it. So if they went 1.5, then 2 more to move on to the forest would be 3.5, and then stay on the road for another half to be 4. So they can make it there without problem. Move across the ice. Actually, they were in an enemy zone of control. They would have had to pay an additional 1 to move away. So the move from here to here would have not been 1.5, but 2.5. 2 more to move into the forest for 4.5, and then a half on the road would get them there by using all 5 of their movement points. Not sure what we're going to do with these units here yet. We do have a full strength unit here. Let's take a look at the units that we do have over here near the village. We have 2 full strength companies. A full strength company there and a machine gun unit. I should probably get them off of that frozen lake. But in order to do that, I would either have to retreat back to Katasari or break and then move around to the south, which would take a long time to make that movement, at least a couple of turns. And the Finns reinforced themselves here pretty good. Yeah, they got their engineer and 2 full strength companies there. So definitely don't want to attack there. They'd have me outgunned. Maybe I move down to the south to get a concentric bonus here. But again, they have 2 full strength companies there dug in. They would be halved coming off the frozen lake. Unless I move this company in position here. I could also move these infantry guns into position. They can move 3, which I can move 2 spots across the frozen lake. But then they're just sitting ducks as far as taking wounds because, as I've said in a past turn, I believe, there's nothing on the back of them. They're just a 1-step unit, and that would be easy to eliminate them and give the Finns easy victory points. I'm going to take these units here, this machine gun and full strength company, and move them 1 hex to the north. That'll put them in position for these areas here, these hexes that have only 1 unit with a strength of 4 under each of them. A little bit more vulnerable than these ones that have 2 full companies stacked under them. And I could use, and I really don't want to move them next to that to where they can take damage. But if I move them into a stack with that unit here, that stack, then at least they'll be protected because I can choose who gets reduced in the stack. But then again, I would choose to reduce them because they're the weakest. And if I move even 2 of them over there, we're still on a frozen lake and they would only be reduced down to 1 from a total of 2. So that's going to really not lend a whole lot of support. I'm going to move this full strength unit into position. It would cost them 2 to move there, and they're on the road. So that would put them at 2.5. If I went here, that would be 2.5, 3.5, 4, and I could not join them this time. But if I stay there, I could move there in a later turn and join that stack for a possible attack. Do I want to disengage here and start moving around for a possible attack on one of these weaker positions? Well, let's see. They can move 5. To move to this village hex here would cost 1 to disengage, so that's 2, 3, 4 and a half. And they would have to stop there. We wouldn't be in a zone of control. Then in a later turn, no, because if we move there, we're in a zone of control anyway. I think maybe I leave them there for an attack. If I move them out and around, that would take this turn. That would be another turn. That would be the 11th turn when I got to there. But if I stay here, I don't think I'm going to attack these dug-in positions with 2 units. So I'm going to go ahead and start moving them out. Again, it's going to be 1 to disengage and 1 to move into the village hex. So that's 2, 3, 4.5. And we'll do the same with that unit. We couldn't move here for our last half because it's into a zone of control, so we have to pay the terrain cost. I do have this full strength unit over here. I could start working them in that direction also to maybe add on to that stack there. There's no way I can get all the way over here before the end of this scenario. I could move up through here and stage myself outside of here in anticipation of helping with any casualties, acting as a replacement. So it would be a half, 2, 3.5, 5. Yeah, it would take them several turns just to get into position for that also. We'll use them as backup. So that'd be 1, 2, 3, and we'll just stop right there. Before we get into the attack on the hotel, let's go ahead and check for recovery of this 1 unit. These ones down here moved, so they can't do recovery. So we have 1 unit attempting recovery. They are more than 4 hexes away from the enemy, so they get that +1. They're definitely in supply, so a 5 or a 6 recovers. They got it. So that gives us another unit that is fully recovered that we can use as a possible replacement for any casualties taken during the attack on the hotel. Before we start this attack, I'd wanted to move one of these units here. That way we have our attack bonus, our concentric attack bonus. So we will take the attack from here will be halved, but it's rounded up. So if I take the 5 out there, 2.5 will go to 3. If I move the machine gun, the 4 will stay a 2. So we'll gain a little bit more if we move that one out there. So we'll do that before we attack, and we'll declare our attack. All 4 of these hexes here are attacking this single hex right there. And I believe by moving here, these units that have a ranged attack, I don't think they can do defensive support because they have a unit right up against them. But I'll check the rules to be sure. I looked at the rules real quick and I'm wrong. These units can provide adjacent defensive support attacking that hex there. The criteria are the attackers are in a frozen lake, which that unit is. And the firing units, which are right here, are not in an enemy zone of control apart from that originating from the target hex, which means I'm in no other enemy zone of control except for the one I'm targeting, which allows these units to fire adjacent defensive support. If another enemy was here, I couldn't do it because I would be in someone else's zone of control other than the hex I'm attacking. So they can provide support. The Soviets are going all in on this attack, so they have to declare any offensive support. They're going to use both of their mortars and both of their infantry guns. Oop, I forgot to flip those over. There we go. So they're going to use both mortars and both infantry guns as part of this attack. And this mortar here, the one furthest away, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, easily within the range. And they're also going to use all of their artillery are going to fire on that hotel hex too. We want to do as much damage as possible. This may be complete overkill. I know the Finns are going to try and use their support and their one mortar to defend also. So I'm just going to go all in and use all artillery batteries. The Finns will declare their defensive support. They're going to use this mortar. Let's see, which hex will it attack? These two machine guns and infantry unit that has a ranged attack also are going to concentrate all their fire on that hex there. This mortar would probably be better off firing here. There's only two infantry companies there, but they're not dug in. But then again, these ones, this unit is sitting on a frozen lake hex. So we'll have the mortar go at that one too, with the hopes of if we eliminate it before the attack occurs, that breaks the concentric attack bonus that the Soviets have. I probably should have moved another unit out there, but damage is already done. We'll go with what we have, and if the Finns get lucky, they'll get lucky and break that bonus. The phasing player will now perform all of their offensive support. We'll start with the artillery batteries. I'll go ahead and reduce the ammo of the Soviets by 3 for their 76mm guns, and that'll take them down to 11. And before I do that, I totally forgot that I had 76mm guns on the Finnish side. Do I want to use them on this hex here, or do I want to conserve them? I think I'll conserve them. Let's take a quick look at what we have at the hotel. We'll need to know that for our ranged attack bonus. We have 3 machine gun units, 2 infantry companies, and Piari dug in there. First, let's get our modifiers for our ranged attack. There are 2 infantry companies there, so the Soviets are going to get a +2. It's not a frozen lake. None of these guns are going to be self-spotting. Everyone's in an adjacent hex that is spotting, no negative modifier. They are dug in, and this is indirect fire, so it's going to take it down to a 1. There are no modifiers during this day turn. There's no fog or night or dawn or dusk or anything like that to worry about, so our modifier is going to stay at a 1. Our first unit, the third of the 354th, that is a 152mm weapon. It has a strength of 8. So we're going to roll 8, add 1 on for 9. So we're going to add 9 on to whatever this roll is for that weapon. 5, 6, 7. That actually didn't turn out very good. That's going to give us a 16. It is a suppression, but not a step reduction. So the Soviets will drop a suppression on the hotel. And if we look on the back of this token, we have to roll a 6-sided die to see how many turns until it's ready again. This, the Soviets definitely want a low number. A 1. Perfect. That worked out great for them. That works out great. When you roll the die on the back of the 354th Artillery, you place it that many numbers ahead on the turn track. We're in turn 9 right. I get to place this on turn track 10, which is the very next turn. This large piece of artillery will be ready again for the Soviets. Excellent roll. Next we'll do the second of the 354th. That's a 122 millimeter gun, and it has a 7 strength with the bonus of 1, so it's going to add 8 on to its roll. 8 plus 4 is 12, that's nothing. Let's roll to see where they end up on the turn track. 3 turns ahead, 9, 10, 11, 12. That will place him on the very final turn of this scenario. And that is a night turn, so most likely they won't be firing. Might do it anyway, just because it's the last chance to use them, and they don't use ammo anyway. And finally, the first of the 354th, also 122 millimeter weapon with a strength of 7. Add the bonus of +1. 8 plus 7, 15. Also not a step reduction, but a second suppression. Roll a die to see where they end up. 6 means they are 6 turns ahead, which is beyond the turns of this scenario, so they are out of the game effectively. Now we have our 3 76 millimeter weapons with a strength of 5, and they have a modifier of 1 also. So we're going to add 6 on to 6 for 12, no effect. Next one fires. That will have an effect. That is an 11 plus a 6 is 18. That is another suppression and a step reduction. That's 1 step reduction to the units at the hotel. And the final piece of artillery fires. Ooh, that's terrible. Nothing occurs there. Next, our mortars will fire. The 364th and the 609th mortars both have an indirect fire strength of 5. Same modifier, so they're adding that 1 on. So that's 6 added to 6 for 12. No effect. And then the second mortar, same, no effect. Now we have our infantry guns from the 364th and the 609th, both firing with an indirect fire strength of 3. So they need good rolls, because with a 1, they're only going to get a total of 4 to add on to their roll. The first one fires. 7 and 4, 11, no effect. And 10 and 4 is 14, which would be another suppression. Not bad. Now this may seem like overkill because you can only have 3 column shifts from suppressions in either direction. But if the Finns only get 1, if any, suppressions, that would just cancel 1 out and I would still get my 3 here. So that's why I went with the overkill attack there with the indirect fire. But now the Finns get to do their turn. Let's take a look at the hotel area again, just to refresh our memory. We have our mortar firing on the frozen lake, and then we have our 2 infantry companies, our infantry company and 2 machine guns firing also in support. These 3 are conducting adjacent support. This one is indirect fire. Line of sight is 5, and it's just 2 hexes away across the frozen lake. It's going to self-spot. First we'll handle the mortar from JR-16. Let's look at our modifiers first. We have an infantry company that we're firing on, so that's going to give us a 1. It is a frozen lake hex, and those are Soviet, so it's going to be a +2 for a total of 3. The mortar is spotting, so it will add another +1 for a total of 4. So the Finns will get to add 4 onto their roll. They have a strength, or an indirect fire strength of 4, so it's going to be a total of 8 added on to a very bad roll of 4 for 12, so that has no effect. Next we'll fire our 2 machine gun units, the 2nd and the 3rd of the JR-16. Their modifiers, again, they're firing at an infantry company on a frozen lake, so that's +1 for the infantry company, 2 more for the frozen lake, and luckily we're not firing at 3 or more hexes, so we don't have a -2 to our bonus. So we're going to get 3 added on to the strength of those machine guns, which is 4. So 7 for the plus this roll for the first machine gun. That's a really good roll. That's 9 plus 7 is 16. That 16 will drop a suppression. Sorry if you heard some scratching there. That was one of our cats at the door. Wanted to know what I was doing. Our second machine gun is going to add 7 onto 5 for 12. That's not very effective. And finally we have our infantry company, the 4th of the 2nd JR-16, using the same modifiers, but only with a strength of 2. So they're going to add 5 onto 7 for 12, no effect. All of our support is completed. Drop that suppression there. And 4 of them there. And now I need to determine the combat ratio. First we'll get the ratio of the attackers. We have this 5 here that is halved down to 2.5, rounded up to 3. We have 3 infantry companies there for 5, 10, 15, add 4 on for the machine gun for 19, plus the 3 from here will give us 22. I believe we have 3 here. Yes, 3 infantry companies. So 22 plus 10 is 32, and 5 is 37, and 4 is 41, and 4 is 45. And up here we have 2 machine guns and 2 infantry companies, 45 and 5, 50, and 5, 55, and 4, 59, and 4, 63. So we have a 63 attacking. Let me move the suppressions out of the way. Okay, I got my mess cleaned up. So we have a 63 attacking. Remember, the black numbers are doubled on defense. 6, 6 more for 12, 6 more for 18, and 5 for 23, and 5 more for 28. 63 attacking a 28. A 63 attacking a 28 is a 2.25 to 1 round in favor of the defender. This is a 2 to 1. On the combat results table, we have a 2 to 1 ratio. And now we look at all of our modifiers. We already took care of the frozen lake, and now the suppression. So the 2 to 1, and this is going to cancel out the suppression from the Soviets. So that 2 to 1 becomes a 3 to 1, 4 to 1, 5 to 1. We're at a 5 to 1. Now we look at the PRE bonus. PRE is there. That's going to bump it back to a 4 to 1. We are dug in. That's going to bump it back to a 3 to 1. And that is where we will stand, which is not that great. I was hoping for a much better ratio. We're probably not going to cause them to vacate the hotel. But let's give it a roll. Maybe the Soviets will roll really high. The Soviets absolutely need a high roll here. And I forgot. I did take a step reduction at the hotel. Let me do that real quick. Almost forgot my step reduction. So we'll drop one of our infantry units down a step. Almost forgot that. Now the Soviets need a good roll here. If they don't roll high, it's really going to cripple their chances of taking that hotel out. Well, they rolled high. Not bad. A 10 on the 3 to 1 table is 0 losses to 4. So they inflicted 4 losses on the hotel. I don't want to vacate the hotel with the Finns. That is a lot of victory points. But I'm also going to take a lot of wounds here. Because remember, it's double victory points for the Soviets. So for every 2-step unit that gets eliminated here, that's 6 for them. Single step is 4. A 2-step reduced is worth 2. And the hotel itself is worth 10. So I have to decide, is it better to just retreat out of here, give them the hotel, or to take the losses? Well, I'm going to take 4. And if I reduce down, that would be worth 8 to them. If I give them the hotel, I'm not going to get it back because they're going to move a ton of units in there. But I am in the hotel, so my first loss is absorbed. So I'm only going to take 3 losses. So we're okay. We'll figure out what losses we want to take. We already had to take a step reduction because of the indirect fire attacks. So we have 3 machine guns at full, 1 infantry at full. I don't want to give them the points for taking out that infantry unit completely. So I will reduce the infantry by 1 and 2 of the machine gun units by 1 to absorb all 3 losses. I don't have any other attacks planned with the Soviets. While they were unable to dislodge the Finns from the hotel, they inflicted a lot of casualties. Those units need to come out of there. And the Soviets got a nice lock around that hotel. Any Finns that retreat would retreat into an enemy zone of control. And I don't mean retreat as in took wounds from the, or took losses from the assault. I just mean getting out of there. If they move from zone of control and then the next move is a zone of control, they have to stop. So it would take them a minimum of 2 turns to get out of there. So if they moved in turn 10 and then they'd have to move again in turn 11 just to get out of there, that would leave them only the final turn to try and recover. And I have to make those moves while trying to get healthy units in, and there's no easy route to do that. They would have to come in from, there's no route. Everything coming into the hotel is in an enemy zone of control, which means even reinforcements would have to stop 1 unit short, leaving less units at the hotel and leaving them very vulnerable. And the Soviets get their biggest piece of artillery back in the next turn, so they may just go again. And they do have a unit down here that they can probably bring around to add to their strength, maybe drop it out here over to the frozen lake. I don't know if it's too far, so we got a half, 1.5 for 2, 1.5, 3.5. And they might be able to make it there. So the Soviets might be able to knock those Finns out of there before the end of the scenario. It's a tough situation for the Finns. They may have to use their forces over here and their mortars to try and inflict damage on these Soviet units over here just to cause some losses for them to get themselves some victory points also. I don't think they're going to be able to hold on to the hotel unless they get really lucky. I could hold off and save the mortars and use them as support, have all 3 mortars available for support. These are here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, are within range of that frozen lake hex. I could move them along the road, bring them a little bit closer. So all these hexes are within range. I only got a lot to think about. The Finns are going to be going next. The Soviets did a great deal of damage and put them in a very weakened state. The Finns have some important choices to make here. They took a lot of casualties there at the hotel. First, we'll go ahead and reset our mortars. And artillery had not fired, so it doesn't need reset. We still have 2 loads of ammo available for our 76 millimeter off-map artillery. We have several wounded units here that need to recover. We do have these Soviets. They're trying to come around the side of the village here. We have these ones out on the ice, on the island. Let's concentrate here and see exactly what we have available as far as options for our hotel. Again, we have Soviets on 4 sides of us, so retreating out of there is not going to be available because leaving here is going to put us right back into an enemy zone of control hex, which will end our movement immediately, and it also stops someone from coming in really fast to help relieve those that are there. At our hotel, besides PRE, we have a machine gun, and then I believe everything else is reduced. Yes, we have 2 reduced machine guns, 2 reduced infantry units. So we're looking at a defense of 6, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 14, and 6 would be a defense of 20. And they can attack with pretty high numbers. The hotel is in trouble. Let me put this all back together before I take this off. I don't want to get anything confused. All right, and next to us there we have 2 machine guns and a full infantry unit. So we could drop those 2 machine guns and one of those infantry units out and then move them in to help reinforce the hotel. I think that is a good idea. So let me just move these off to the side so we don't get anything mixed up. Put PRE there and our good machine gun. Now we can't move everybody at once because of the stacking limit if they end their movement there. And we can only move 1 anyway because of these zones of control from the Soviets. So I'm just going to move this out of the way. Here at the gravel pits, we'll have 1 machine gun fall back, 1 machine gun will move forward, which I'll put up here. 1 will fall back, another will move forward to replace it, and 1 infantry will fall back, and then this one will move forward to replace it. So that will give us almost complete relief at the hotel. And if they don't get attacked here, all these depleted units will be able to retreat and be replaced by reinforcements. So that was a good move. That gives us a lot more defense there. So we have 5 and 3 as far as infantry companies. That'll give us 8. And then the machine guns are all at, I think, 4. No, I just took a quick look. I forgot that the Finnish machine guns are at 3. So we got 3 of them there at full strength for 9, multiplied by 2 for 18. So we'll be over the 20. So that's a much better scenario for defense. We do have this mortar here and 2 mortars over here. 3 units that need to recover. I believe these units are all, yes, they're all full strength here in Toviarvi. I'm going to have them dig in, and they have the engineer unit with them. The engineers can go from nothing to completely dug in 1 turn. And they can do that even if they're in an enemy zone of control, as long as there's another friendly infantry company with them, or unit. And they're not in the zone of control anyway, so that is straight to dug in, which is extremely helpful for our defense of the village. Remember, there are 8 hexes there. We have 6 of them dug in with 2 open. I'm going to leave them all there, dug in, those 2 companies and the engineer. Or maybe we move one of them. Let's focus on that area. I'm thinking, since I only have 1 unit there in defense, we'll take one of these companies, move them there. That way, if there is an attack, there's more adjacent defensive support allowed because they're out on a frozen lake, so we can shoot at them. And it also keeps them from wanting to attack there by bringing these units to do a concentric attack now that there's more under there. And all of these hexes below it contain multiple units also, making it much more costly if the Soviets want to attack. The only ones that have, it looks like the only one that has a single unit is right here with a bicycle unit, and the one to the north has 2 units also. So the village is pretty well defended. We should be able to hold off the Soviets there. We just got our reinforcements at the hotel, and we need to attempt recovery for these units. 1, 2, 3, 4, and they're 4 or more away from all the enemy units, so they'll get that bonus. We have 3 of them here, so when we roll, the first roll will be for the top of this stack, second roll for the bottom, third roll for this solitary unit up here. We will attempt recovery. We're going to need a 5 or a 6 because you only get a +1. That top unit on that stack does recover. The unit below it does not, and the solitary unit does not recover, just 1. This top unit successfully recovered, so they can move in their next turn to help out on one of the fronts, either at the hotel location or maybe in the village. Next, I want to think about my mortars. I have 2 here, 1 there, for a total of 3. Do I want to move these mortars closer to this area so they can land attacks there? So they can hit this one that's out here by itself, which they could inflict some damage on, maybe even take them out. But I think that would be short-lived because the Soviets could move another unit and then reinforce with that unit. Or should I save my mortars for defensive support to try and get column shifts back in my direction because of the attack on the hotel that's probably going to come again, because they are going to get their big piece of artillery back in the very next round that has an attack strength of 8. So they're going to probably make another go at it. I don't really want to move anything here. I don't have any direct or indirect fire attacks. I could launch a couple of mortars here, but again, this is only 1 infantry unit. I would get a couple of positives, and maybe attacking here makes more sense than here since they can swap out units and fix that right away. A little bit more difficult here. I mean, they do have multiple, well, just 1 really. They have that infantry unit there. I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to go ahead and use my mortars, including this one here, to all do an indirect fire attack on this hex here, because they are going to get a +1 because there's an infantry company there. And they're going to get a +2 because they are Soviets on a frozen lake hex. So that gives me +3. I do have a line of sight right now of 5, but I don't think, because it's from center of hex to center of hex, I think I'm out of luck there. If I go from center of hex to center hex, I can see that it's already going through those other hexes where I have dug in units, so I can't do a direct spot with that mortar. So we'll do that. We will attack with all our mortars at a +3, and we'll be adding 4 on, so we have a chance of doing some damage. We get to add our bonus of 3, and we have a strength of 4 for those mortars, which gives us 7. We need to get to a 17 in order to cause a step reduction. So any roll of 10 or 11 will cause that. If we manage to roll a 12, that'll give us a 19, and that is 2 step reductions. That would be beyond great. But we're firing with 3 mortars, so we get 3 shots at it. Hopefully we can get at least a 10 or higher on at least one of these rolls to cause them some damage. The mortar on the Heavy Bridge fires, gets an 11. That is awesome. That is going to give us an 18, and that's going to be 1 step reduction. It was already worth it. Now we have the 2 mortars to the northwest of the village. The first one is a 9 and a 7, 16, just a little short. And the final one, oh, also a 9. Really good rolls, but not good enough. We will do one step reduction though. Not bad. Now if we reduce this, it'll go down to a 2. If we reduce that, it'll go down to a 3. 3 and 4 is 7. So either way, it's going to be 7 total strength there. I'll have them reduce the infantry unit because the machine gun is worth a little bit more on defense. So that hurt them a little bit. Not a lot of action, not a lot of movement from the Finns, but they did reinforce by digging in. They recovered with 1 unit, did some damage with their mortar fire, but we have to see what happens on the attack on the hotel. We don't have our mortars to help us. If we get desperate, we can use our artillery, but they're not very strong. I don't know if I can land any decent suppressions with those or not. I'll run the numbers once we see what the Soviets are going to do as we move forward into turn number 10.